This week on Previews World Weekly, Free Comic Book Day, Free Comic Book Summer comes to a close. The boys are back, and are superheroes fascists? Stay tuned. It's all happening right now on Previews World Weekly. What's up, Previews World? It's Wednesday. It is New Comic Book Day, which means it's time for Previews World Weekly. I'm one of your hosts, Troy Jeffrey Allen, and I'm being joined by a special guest this week. What's up, Anna-Mia?
Hey, how's it going?
How you doing? How's your weekend been? This is a nice little 3-day, right?
Yeah, it was nice. It was relaxing. I went out and got some to-go Mexican food from the place down the street. So it was like the first time getting to have like restaurant food in a while again.
Oh, really? You've been on super lockdown.
Oh, yeah.
You haven't been doing the restaurant thing at all.
No, I mean, well, every now and then I go get fast food, but like I haven't been doing restaurants at all. And I mean, every now and then I get to go, but it's been a while, so it was nice. It was good. It was really nice.
Awesome. So in case you're wondering why Ashton's here, she lost a battle for her soul and now she's in a hell dimension. Maybe she'll come back next week. But we're incapable, capable, and Mia's capable hands, capable shoes. I don't know. I forget how
I don't have shoes on right now, so we'll say my hands.
The joys of working from home, right?
Yeah, no shoes.
So we normally do this thing at the top of the show where we talk about things we saw this past week, right? And you're no stranger to the show. You know how this normally works. And like, was there anything cool that you ran across? Anything that came into your sights during the last couple of days?
I watched The Boys. The new season came out. Super excited. It was really good. I've been waiting a long time. They left it on a huge cliffhanger.
Oh, really? Okay.
I don't know. Am I allowed to talk about season 1 at all?
Well, no, I think we can definitely talk about season 1.
Okay.
Season 1's good to go.
But I mean, basically they left it up with, all of a sudden Homelander's got a kid. You're like, what the heck? What's going to happen with this? And it's been really cool the first 3 episodes. I'm really excited. I'm just mad that they're doing it once every week.
Right, that's right, yeah. Like, didn't they do that? Like, yeah, I guess when they originally released it, they released it all at once, right? Like the first season?
I don't remember. I can't remember if they did or not, but they're doing this thing now where they're releasing shows 1 episode a week, and it drives me nuts. I mean, I guess it's a good thing because it forces me to pace it out, but
I'm kind of of the camp of like, yeah, you can pace it out with me. Like, give me an episode a week. I'm fine with that. Like, I'm just old school enough, I guess, that it doesn't bother me to like that I can't binge it back to back to back.
Oh, see, I'm a binger.
You're
I'm
a binger.
like, all right, when does it come out? All right, I'm going to stay up all night if I have to until I finish it. And then I wonder what I'm going to do with myself for the next year. So, smartest idea.
So, can we get like a short little Mia review of season 2?
Season 2, new character, which is really awesome. I'm not going to say too much about her. It is a her, so female character, very cool. And it's got that same intensity that you have from the first season, definitely gruesome. And, a lot of the same characters that you love are coming back in kind of different ways and with different roles a little bit. So, I'm if you liked season 1, definitely season 2 is already off to a great start.
Okay. And so at the risk of spoiling season 2 a little bit, like, cover your ears if you haven't jumped up into the first couple of episodes, or I guess the first episode. There's this whole thing about like the Vought. Is it Vought, right? Isn't that the organization? Like being tied to Nazis, right? Like that's a whole thing, right? So, and it created. No, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Well, no, I was just gonna lob it up a little bit because like we're gonna talk a little bit about superheroes and like if they have fascist tendencies. And part of the reason that this conversation came up was because of The Boys dropping this past week. That was one of the reasons. So
you see it with those characters. You saw it with them creating the super villains, what was it? The super terrorists that they were trying to call it. So it is where you can not only have superheroes, but sometimes they can get very intense or radicalized. And then, but we'll go into that more because that's the discussion for later. But it really does introduce that concept in the series and your perception of what superheroes are. So.
Okay, cool. Now I'm looking forward to it. I'm definitely behind. Instead of watching The Boys this weekend, actually, I went ahead and watched Jay and Silent Bob, the reboot. Which wasn't really on my radar. I got to be honest with you. Like I have an affinity for Kevin Smith stuff in general. He's one of those guys that really got me into the notion of filmmaking and, like the idea that anybody can do it and all this other stuff. And I sat here and like just kind of randomly watched it, and it surprised me by how much View Askew-universe information I had retained over the last like decade, right?
You're like, I didn't know I knew it this well.
Right. Like just how much information I just retained from like the Kevin Smith films. But then on top of that, like it was just pretty wholesome in actually a kind of surprising way.
Yeah.
And that actually kind of surprised me about it. And interestingly enough, one of the characters in the movie early on talks about like reboots, right? They kind of explain what the difference is between a remake and a reboot, and it gets super involved, right? But what they ended up doing is they explained that like, well, what you do with a reboot is you cast all the characters and make them and diversify them, right? And so I watched that movie, and that's what that movie is, right? Like Jay has a daughter, spoiler alert, right? And there's a female Silent Bob, right? But then on top of that, I watched Bill and Ted Face the Music, and they do the exact same thing.
Oh, really? That's awesome.
Yeah.
Because I saw Jay and Silent Bob the reboot, and for me, it was like, if you're a fan of the movies, the Kevin Smith movies, this really was like a homage. It was like a love letter to all the fans. The cameos that were in there, it was like, and the way they were thrown in, not where it was just like a random character from one of his movies, but they were thrown in so creatively.
Yeah, right.
And it really just was a love letter to the fans of his movies. So to hear that Bill and Ted is like that, I now I want to go rent it.
And they're both super genuine, which was actually really nice. I kind of feel sometimes when you visit these older franchises, like, years later, there's kind of like a cynicism that kind of seeps into them. You know what I mean? But both of these movies were like just super upbeat and just kind of like, hey, you like these guys, so come on and just go on an adventure with us, and like, and you'll continue to like them, and it really works, and it surprised the hell out of me. So yeah, two back to back. Yeah, two back to back. I was really down for it. Actually, speaking of Bill and Ted, it's time for What's at Comic Shops, and I'm not going to spoil my pick this week, but it is a Bill and Ted book, oddly enough. Let's check out what's available at the new release rack this week. So Mia, you're all caught up. Oh, sorry. If we're going to do this, then I'm going to do this too.
I was like, I think I have time. I'm not used to the format. All right.
Right. It's okay. You broke protocol, so now I'm going to do it too. So you got a chance to check out what's available this week. Is there anything that like caught your eye, caught your attention that you're like, oh, I'm down for that?
So there were two, and it was like mashups that I was like, okay, this sounds really cool. So one was Mars Attacks and Red Sonja, and that that sounds hilarious to me. Like, I don't know how I love Red Sonja. I don't know how she can yodel. I don't know what her yodeling skills are. I don't know if she can yodel.
That is a deep pull, and shout out to Mia for making that pull.
So we'll have to see if she can how she defeats them on this one. So that was one that I thought looked really cool. Then the other one was Outer Darkness and Chew. So I'll admit I don't know our Outer Darkness, but after reading the description of this, I kind of want to now read that, so that way I have a basis, because I love Chew, and it's Chew in space in the future, and I'm like, oh, that sounds really cool. So now I have to read Outer Darkness and then this one. So, but it gives me a good to-do list.
No, absolutely. Like I remember when they announced the Outer Darkness Chew crossover, everybody was like, what? Like because I mean, Chew is kind of like this detective story, and the Outer Darkness is definitely the sci-fi thing. But it comes from John Layman, who did both, and so if anybody's going to cross him over, it should be him. Why not, right?
Yeah, I'm excited. I mean, honestly, the premise sounded really fun. So
absolutely. My pick this week is a book called Bill and Ted Are Doomed. It's coming out from Dark Horse Comics this week, and it actually is a prequel to Bill and Ted Face the Music. And the thing I love about this is actually Evan Dorkin, who did he previously did Bill and Ted comics like back in the day. So he's kind of coming back to these characters and continuing their story just in time for the movie. Evan Dorkin, of course, did Milk and Cheese. If you're familiar with Milk and Cheese at all, it is absolutely ridiculous, absolutely absurd. And so therefore, right at home with the Bill and Ted franchise. And I don't know, like Bill and Ted's kind of a big mood for me. I rewatched the first one and then I watched the third one. I need to go find the second one. And so I'm just kind of like into it right now. It's just kind of like something that's been like kind of shaping my week is like, what other Bill and Ted things can I find? So I'm totally down for that. It's just fun. It's just good fun in general.
Oh, yeah.
Big ticket items this week. Actually, before I even do that, normally Ashton would be here to do the free comic book summer breakdown, but I'm going to do it for you real quick. If you guys are getting a chance to go to your local comic shop this week, be sure to ask them about the free comic book summer. It's so hard not to say free comic book day summer. Free comic book summer offerings that are available this week. We have Humanoids is dropping a NCOW little short story. Of course, that's Alejandro Jodorowsky and Friends and Mobius. That is a classic if you're big into European comics. You've probably already read these already, but if you haven't, but you think you might want to check that out. Also, Zelda Twilight Princess is another book that's getting a little bit of shout out. And also there's a little Splatoon, little short story in the back. Also, there's this thing called Sue and Tai-chan, which I am not familiar with, but apparently it's like the cat odd couple. And so like that's like one's a grumpy old cat and one's a younger cat that's just like getting on his nerves all the time.
Oh, they're my cats.
There you go. You know what? As someone who's really lived with cats, I can also attest to that. That seems to always be the dynamic, isn't it? But yeah, those are available for free comic book summer this week. So definitely check those out and definitely check with your local comic shop first before you run over there and be like, give me my free comics, because not everybody's doing them today. Some people are doing them on Saturdays. Some people are doing them for the entire week. Some people aren't. It depends on what's going on at your local comic shop. Also, big ticket items this week. What do we got up here? Johnny, can you throw some stuff up for me and I can talk about them real quick? What do you got for the big ticket items? Here we go. Actually, there's a hardcover for Firefly this week. It's actually an original story, and it's called The New Sheriff in the Verse. And that's actually from Boom Studios this week, so definitely check that out. I love that cover, by the way. It reminds me of like the old Drew Struzan covers. I love that. Also available this week, Cyberpunk 2077. I am so pressed for this video game. Like, I am chomping at the bits to play this. And it just so happens that Dark Horse is actually releasing a series by Cullen Bunn and friends called Trauma Team, which kind of like delves into this world of Cyberpunk 2077. If you know anything about this video game, there's a lot of world to explore, so definitely check that out. Also this week, Web of Venom Wraith #1. If you're looking forward to this Venom event that's coming at the end of the year, this might be a good place to jump on. It's Donny Cates, so the guy who's currently writing Venom and who's been really setting up a lot of cool stuff for the symbiote and Venom and Eddie Brock and the symbiote god, I guess you want to call it. This is all stuff that's like coming down the pipe, and this is like kind of like the first salvo into that big event, so definitely check that out. Also this week, Ice Cream Man presents Quarantine Comics Special #1, and I love this because, you know, why not take advantage of the opportunity that, you know, we're in the quarantine, go pick up some comics. Like, why not, right? Also, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #109. This is Sophie Campbell and friends. So, like, if you've been following the series, this is actually a nice little jumping on point because the mutants are going into Mutant Town, or they've been in Mutant Town the last couple of issues. So this is kind of like a nice little standalone to get you like situated into the new status quo of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Also this week, Ultraman from Marvel Comics, which is kind of a strange thing to say, right? Like, I mean, Ultraman is a Japanese superhero, and Marvel's got him. So let's take a look at the trailer. When we come back, I'll give you a little bit more insight. How about that? And that's Ultraman from Marvel Comics. I got to say, Marvel's been doing a great job with some of these comic book trailers lately.
That
They've
was
been
amazing.
yeah, they've been pretty bombastic, right? Yeah, it's kind of like, whoa, okay.
And the big epic music.
Right.
And yeah, that was great.
Absolutely. So that's from Kyle Higgins, who does the did the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers comic book. So he's in good company here. This is kind of like his wheelhouse. It's also Francesco Mattina, who also has actually a DC poster art book out this week. So definitely check that out. That drops today at your local comic shop, and I'm curious to see if they're going to integrate him into the 616, the Marvel universe, because that's what they did with Conan actually recently. Like they kind of made him part of the larger universe as a whole. So definitely check that out. Okay. Oh boy. So you ready for this, Mia?
I saw you post this question on social media, and I was like, "Oh Lord, Troy went there." Like this could be good or bad, but this is gonna be intense. So
it's gonna be intense. This might be our last show ever. So just cherish it, Mia. Just cherish it.
Oh God.
We're gonna kick it over to Mia, and she's gonna handle Social Swamp for us. Here we go.
All right. All right, so we asked you on social media, are superheroes fascist? Why or why not? And here's what you had to say. So Xavier said there are superheroes of pretty much every philosophy.
That's real. I like that.
Rob Cook says it depends on the hero. We've got Batman, who is easily fascist, but then you've got Captain America, who has turned on the government whenever they decided to go too far. It really just depends on the character. Patrick says, are superheroes real? Seems like only supervillains truly exist. I see a lot of Lex Luthors and Kingpins, but not many Super or Spider-Man. Tam says, part of the problem of superheroes equal fascism is that it ignores the context of the creation of Superman, Captain America, and Wonder Woman, all three of which were created at a time when a literal fascist dictator was killing Jews in droves.
Yeah,
very true. Charlie B. The human characters who choose to be heroes are often made with money or have connections with money. They use this to put on a costume and punch people rather than using their influence to enact a greater social change. If they are not fascists, they are at the very least complicit in fascism.
Jeez.
Everyone's going deep.
Yeah. Oh, Johnny, actually, we don't need this one. My bad. Sorry about that. No, that's Max Visaggio. I was using that as an example beforehand of just where this conversation came from. And I guess I can provide some context here. We talked about the boys earlier, right? And then reintroduced the conversation. But this conversation, apparently, if you Google superheroes and fascism, has been going on for a few years now. And I'm not sure why it started, right? But it's been a reoccurring conversation for whatever reason. And so I've been seeing this thing kind of constantly pop up. And I think I'm pretty certain because of the boys' first episode, it popped up again. But I'm going to ask you first, Mia. Well, actually, how about this? Johnny, can you throw up the definition of the word fascism before we delve into this? Okay, so here we go. Fascism is a system of government led by a dictator who typically rules by forcefully and often violently suppressing opposition and criticism, controlling all industry and commerce, and promoting nationalism and often racism. So just to get that on the ground floor, just to stab that up front. So Mia, what is your take here? What do you think is the deal?
So I feel like if you're a true superhero, you are for the people, right? So you are for everyone. Whereas I think villains are more, they are the one they let Lex Luthor, they want to rule the world. Thanos wants to rule the universe. Right. So I think where you can get into it is kind of like on the boys where, you see Homelander and you think he's this great Captain America guy, but really he's been kind of tainted by whether it's fame or power or just being a creepy weirdo.
Also true.
He changes and he becomes, as you can see him turning into, where it's all about him and he's kind of wanting to rule everything and take over. And so it's like you see how superheroes, and especially I feel like nowadays when it comes to like the social media aspect and popularity and that kind of thing, where it can get to someone's head and you can go from being a superhero to a dictator pretty easily, I feel, because you have powers. So I think it just depends on the heart of the person, the heart of the hero.
No, absolutely. And I think like, that's the funny thing about all this is like it plays off of the theme of like absolute power corrupts absolutely, right? Like that's the deal. But ultimately, by definition, a superhero probably wouldn't be fascist. Now that said, one of my favorite comics is The Authority, which came out in the early 2000s, and they start off as like kind of like superheroes with a slightly aggressive bent to them, or very aggressive bent to them. But as the story progresses, they kind of become fascist themselves. But it's interesting to see that play out. You know what I mean? Like it's something that you can do, I think, with characters that haven't been around for 80 years. So like a lot of this conversation around this has been, like I said, it's been floating around for a while, and I saw it definitely pop up a lot once the conversation about police brutality kind of became like started to come back up in earnest. Like it started to become part of like the larger conversation that we're having right now. And so I think it's just a mentality that superheroes operate as tools for authority, except any comic nerd could tell you superheroes usually are birthed from or will inevitably come against the system in some way, shape, or form. And I think we've seen that numerous times. We see that with Captain America, right? And like people love to use Batman as an example, but I like to remind people, like, if you look at Batman's history, the character has been as much against the police as he has been for the police. And if you look at Batman's character arc, he exists because of a systemic failure in Gotham City. Because Gotham is corrupt, the mayor is corrupt, the governor's corrupt, they're in bed with the mob, like the police are corrupt. Like that is a reoccurring thing in most interpretations of Batman at this point in time. So it's really odd to me to see people constantly kind of pointing to him as like, oh, Batman's a fascist. And I think that probably stems a little bit from The Dark Knight, because there's that whole bit where he's like surveilling all of Gotham, and Alfred's kind of like, this is not the way, basically.
I think it's because he works so closely with the police and working with them. But it's one of those things of when he sees, you're right, when he sees the corruption, he doesn't side with that anymore, and he goes against that. So again, it's one of those when they're faced with that moral dilemma and starting to see how things are turning in that corruption, do they go along with it? It's kind of like where he has more of a realistic power because it's based on money and being rich and having all these gadgets. Whereas you look at like someone like Thanos, who he's kind of like above all that, and he becomes his own dictatorship. And in all honesty, what's crazy about him as an example is that he probably wouldn't even see himself that way. He wouldn't.
We know that he doesn't.
Yeah. He thinks that he's benefiting everyone, and so it's also that idea of how do you see yourself, and he wouldn't see himself as being the bad guy or being a fascist.
Right.
But yeah, so I think it just depends on how you are or how you react when you're put in a situation or you see the truth behind the curtain.
Right, yeah. And we've gotten the fascist Superman, like there was Superman Red Sun, you know what I mean? And like stuff like that. So, there's interpretations of these characters, but if we're talking about like, the version, the main version of these characters, I would probably argue no. And also, I wanted to point out, like, when we're starting to see the police protests these last couple of months, what did you see a lot of? Well, I saw it quite a few times. I saw people dressed as Black Panther. I saw people dressed as Superman. I saw people dressed as Batman. I saw people dressed as Spider-Man showing up to these protests. And at first, I was kind of like, oh, my God, come on, really, guys? But then in retrospect, I'm like, well, what does it tell you about what these characters mean to people? You know what I mean? Like, they symbolize this fight against overreaching authority. So that in itself is anti-fascist. You know what I mean? So, yeah. So I think, you kind of have to go with how the people consume this product. And actually, I deliberately, I know you saw the post on Free Comic Book Day. You're like, oh God, Troy, why, right? but the reason I did that is because a lot of what I see is people who don't typically read comics saying this, right? And so I was like, I want the comic book people to actually chime in on this and set the record straight. So I think overall, I think our followers, our viewers, the people in the comments actually did a pretty great job. They really unpacked it in a really interesting and somewhat. There was some infighting going on in the comments, but for the most part, people had some.
Civil.
Yeah, it was pretty civil, right? Like it was actually like a nice back and forth.
Oh, I was expecting that to just this could blow up that. Right. I was like, Troy might not be here next week. Okay.
Right, yeah, right. It was like it was a roll of the dice for sure, but
I know it went really well. We have a great group of people that chime in. So
yeah, definitely. Shout out to our followers.
Yeah.
So this week's poll, right? More Bill and Ted. What do we got this week on the poll?
Choose your adventure. Which would be more fun, the TARDIS or the phone booth? Ooh.
Yeah. So like I said, I've been big on So I actually found out something this week that I didn't realize. I thought that the phone booth in Bill and Ted was actually an homage to Doctor Who, but apparently like the creators had no idea that Doctor Who existed.
Really? That's like one of those things where it's like maybe they just somehow subconsciously linked. That's crazy.
Right. And like it's so funny, and like I just thought so. Originally, they wanted to do a van because these two are in a band, and so the band members drive around in a van and go from concert to concert, and then Back to the Future came out, and they were like, well, we can't do another vehicle, so what else can we do? And they settled on the phone booth, but it had nothing to do with Doctor Who, which I thought was hilarious.
Their van wouldn't get up to 80. There's no way.
No way. But that said, I figured that we should probably ask our resident Whovian, Johnny Rose, what his deal is. Johnny, of course, is our production manager.
That's great.
Hey, guys.
Johnny
for the next Doctor.
So Johnny, you are well versed, I think, in Bill and Ted and Doctor Who. So yes. Which one would you rather go for a ride in?
Well, first of all, I want to touch on what you were talking about earlier with the new Bill and Ted book, Bill and Ted Are Doomed. So one thing I found while digging through my comic book collection were some titles: Bill and Ted's Most Triumphant Return.
Oh,
and
nice.
Then what was actually going to be the original title of Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey was Bill and Ted Go to Hell. But the producers of this said that they couldn't market a movie called Bill and Ted Go to Hell. So it ended up being Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. By the way, I have to touch on this one. I love the art on this one, done by one of my favorite artists, Rob Gilroy, who worked on Chew, bringing it around full circle to that. Yeah. So, and I have to do a little bit of a disclaimer. I didn't get into Doctor Who until 6-7 years ago or so. So I first knew about Bill and Ted before I knew about Doctor Who, and to just now to find out that the producers of Bill and Ted had no idea about Doctor Who, that blew my mind. I'm like, you would have thought that obviously, a time traveling phone box. Gee, where have I heard of that before?
Right, yeah.
But I want to kind of go over some of the responses that people submitted to the weekly poll. So Joshua said, "Let's see, all across the universe or just the Earth timeline?"
Oh, that's a good point, actually.
Because that is a good point, because if you're traveling in Bill and Ted's phone box, then you're probably only bound to the Earth. And apparently also maybe not just San Dimas, but they can go wherever they want. They picked up Genghis Khan, and I don't think he was living in San Dimas. So
No.
Trey Hamilton, maybe Bill and Ted are secretly Time Lords.
Dun, dun, dun.
Bum, bum, bum. And if you look at like how the people are dressed when they go into the future, some of them kind of they have weird hats, just like the Gallifreyans did. So it could possibly. I'm not ruling that out as a possibility.
That's my fanfic now.
Yeah, but here's the one that kind of does it for me. Steve says TARDIS, more space inside, and that right there has to be the biggest argument, because if you look at the scene from the first Bill and Ted, when they go back and they're collecting all historical figures for their book report,
right? Yeah.
Because that's what you do. That's what you do when you're feeling history.
Right. Yeah. Of course.
They've got Billy the Kid. They got Socrates.
Socrates, right?
I got Beethoven. I like to say it the way that they were saying it. Beethoven, Abraham Lincoln, Lincoln. All these people. Eventually, at one point, the Bill and Ted phone booth has to fly sideways because they're all standing up in it. So there's no room.
Right, yeah.
TARDIS has not only the main control deck, it has a library, it has a swimming pool, it has God knows how many other rooms are in there, because it is the time and relative dimension space. there's infinite amount of stuff that's in there that you could just roam around in. So
okay.
My first pick would be Tardis, but at the same time, I'm not a fit man. I don't know how much if I could handle the running that would come along with running along with the Doctor and on all these adventures. But I still think that I would pick the Tardis.
Okay. No.
In fact, I have to because I've got a tattoo of the Tardis.
Oh, okay. There you go.
There we go.
All right. So, no fair, Johnny. No fair, Johnny. You gamed the system. We didn't know about the tattoo. But all right, cool. What about you, Mia? Which one would you prefer to jump into and go for a ride?
Yeah, also me, I didn't realize that they were both phone books until I read the question out loud on the screen, and I was like, oh, wait, the second one is the phone booth. I'm like, never put the two together. But yeah, say the TARDIS, there's way more room. I was waiting for someone to say that. Like, it's too squished. You can kind of go everywhere in the TARDIS, and you know, as long as I get the 10th Doctor, I'd be really happy. Like, can I get the 10th Doctor in there? That'd be awesome.
No, I'm sorry. I can't deal with the 10th Doctor. I love David Tennant as the 10th Doctor. I love him. He's my favorite Doctor. But you watch that final episode when he actually turns into Matt Smith. When he says, I don't want to go, and the music starts swelling, I would cry every time I hear that. I can hear the piece of music, and it'll start bringing tears to my eyes because it's so moving. Anyway, I guess Marika Damus is chiming in. She's saying, I'm a rock and roll girl, so she's got to go with Bill and Ted.
I'm with you, Marika. I'm with you 100% on that. Mind you, I don't know anything about Doctor Who, so that's where my...
this is where our friendship ends. Good day, sir. I said good day, sir!
Do a mashup where it's Bill and Ted are the Doctor's companions.
I'm surprised. You know what? I want Dark Horse and Titan Comics to do that crossover comic. That's what I want. I want Dark Horse and Titan Comics, make it happen. People are talking about Bill and Ted again, or maybe it's just me, but still, make it happen. I want to see that. Anyway, comic shop shout out time. So what is our comic shop shout out this week?
All right. For this week's comic shop shout out goes to Cards, Comics, and Stuff in Fort Myers, Florida. And that was submitted by Randy Diaz.
All right. Thank you, Randy.
Thank you. And if you'd like to have your local comic shop shouted out on the show, just post about them on social media using the hashtag #SupportYourLCS.
All right. Awesome. And I guess that's about it for us this week. We actually seem to be a shorter show than I thought. We're at 34 minutes. Normally, I would think if we were talking about fascism, it would have gone a little bit longer, but it didn't.
Or were you just avoiding that just in case?
I mean, maybe we're trying to dodge all the minefields that potentially could come from this, but I think we did good.
I can do a dramatic reading of Bill and Ted's most triumphant return from Boom Studios. 5 seconds after San Dimas Battle of the Bands, 1994.
Not gonna do it. Okay.
We're not have chips or anything, man. If you're gonna keep doing that.
Yeah, I want Johnny's graphic audio version of the Bill and Ted comics. That's what I want right now. So just a reminder, guys, to definitely check us out on. Hey, we did a Jim Rugg interview on Tuesday, just the other day. So definitely check that out. Game night is no more. We had to put a bullet in the back of his head. It was getting too out of control. Yeah, I know. I think I'm going to kind of miss it, but it was just a little too hard to keep up, I think, after a while. But definitely keep an eye on for the panel later this month, right, Mia? We're going to do some Archie goodness, right?
Yep, excited about that. Some Halloween themed Archie stuff. So excited, spooky stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And definitely check out the Jim Rugg interview. He talks about Octobriano, which was a lot of fun and really cool. And actually kind of like a little history lesson too, which was really nice. And Mia, where can people find you? Just so we remind them.
You can find me hanging out with the Previews crew on their videos and also on my social media, pretty much Anamia Official on everything. And then I will be doing some stuff for Game Trade Media coming up. So yay.
All right, cool. And that's it for PREVIEWSworld Weekly. I've been one of your hosts, Troy Jeffrey Allen, and this is
Anamia.
There we go. And hey, guys, be excellent to each other. I'll catch you later. Bye.